Hey, good morning to those of you out here or out there in the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast. I'm excited to get started. It's a nice day. Every day it's a nice day. I'm in a good mood. Generally, I'm just in a good mood. It doesn't matter what kind of day. I think I just like it when it's nicer out there. Hey, I appreciate you engaging in the chat. Let's keep that up. It's always fun for me to be able to come back and see who's engaging. But remember, this is also your network. And so I want you to be able to meet other people. And the best way to be able to meet somebody is to say, hey, I'm targeting Department of Energy, or I'm out there in New Mexico, or I sell this kind of thing, right? Simple engagement in the chat and comments enable you to take it offline. So I'm excited for that. We're going to get rocking and rolling in today's training. And I think we're good to go here. So let's start talking about how to sell to the DOE, how to do business with the Department of Energy. I'm really excited about Department of Energy because when I do these trainings, right, I'm an expert at sales. That's what I do really, really well in the federal market. That's my area of expertise, right? I don't claim to be an expert on the FAR. That's just too complicated, policies, regulations. But so DOE, I'm not an expert on DOE. I'm an expert on getting into DOE. And so I have to go back and study a little bit to remind myself, what is DOE going to do in 2026? And the reality is not many of us really know it until we do our homework. And so that's why I like doing these trainings for you, because I get to do my homework deeper into Department of Energy. And I really begin to understand things like their budget. For example, the Department of Energy's got a discretionary spend or budget of $46 billion for 2026. And that's huge, right? It'll bounce around a little bit as Congress does its thing and the administration does its thing. But the money is there. And there's two truisms about that 46 billion. First off, I've got my words a little backwards if you're looking at my slides, but spending is decreasing a little bit based on 2025 spend to 2026. So if you look at it that way, you'll see spending might go down a little bit. But spending is increasing in many of the key areas. When you think about areas that really are important for 2026 and beyond, that spending is going up. And so that's an exciting thing for us small businesses as we're out there. One other thing that I really, really like about Department of Energy, and I've known this since 2018 when I first met Charlie Smith, who is the OSDBU for the Department of Energy. The OSDBU is the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization, and he's the director. And the unique thing about the Department of Energy is that that OSDBU director is a political appointee. That means they report to the White House. And that is huge for us small businesses. That's how important small business utilization within the Department of Energy is to the Trump administration and to the Department of Energy, is that they have a political appointee, not just somebody who's in the job. You look at HHS, for example, they just kind of got rid of their OSDBUs. But in here in energy, they've really doubled down on saying, what can we do? And this person, Charlie Smith, is reporting back to the executive leadership on what's going on within the government. So that is really a big deal, right? Put your politics aside for a second. When you just think about a business and you're trying to make revenue from Department of Energy, having the executive branch, the president having such a focus there gives me good hope that energy is going to have a lot of good spending opportunities for smalls. One thing I did want to tell you, though, is if you do research like I do in a lot of the government data tools that are out there, SAM, FPDS, USA Spending, whatever, a lot of the spending that goes to small businesses, a lot of the successes for us will be a little bit hidden because that money goes through other companies, large government contractors who are prime contractors. And they're in this situation like at a nuclear facility or national lab or something. And they call them GOCOs, government-owned, contractor-operated. And so what happens is the government owns, let's say, this nuclear power plant or something. And that's a whole big campus. It pretty much buys everything in there, right? Not just the nuclear power. And in there, it is owned by the federal government, but it is completely independently operated by the contractor that has that. And what the government has said to them, Department of Energy has said to them is, look, we're going to give you this huge chunk of money to manage it. You must have small business goals similar to us. You will work on behalf of the Department of Energy to achieve those goals, to work with small businesses. So a lot of the contracts that go into some of these places, they really are kind of like prime contracts for small businesses. But because it is a a contractor, very large contractor running that shop, it's a subcontract. So anyways, all that to say is there's a lot of money there and there's good stuff. So if that sounds good to you and that's what you're here for on today's training, just put DOE rocks into the comments, into the chat. I'm super excited about DOE as a company for you. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about how to do business within the Department of Energy. I'm going to break it up into 4 sections. First thing I want to do is just give you a high-level overview of the organization of Department of Energy and their staff and program offices, as well as their national laboratories. And so I'll show you some of the stuff. Mostly, I'm trying to show you how I get going on it so you can take it away and go dig further in there. Second thing I want to talk about is just understanding who can help you. You can't go into Department of Energy and expect to have success all by yourself. You're going to need somebody else to help you. And so, hold the door open to make introductions, to get you information, whatever it is. And I'm going to talk to you about who these key people are. And I'll show you some tips on where you can go within energy to find more specific people. Third thing I'm going to cover down on is if you're going to do business with Department of Energy, you need to be where their buyers are looking. So I'll talk to you about some of those places, make sure you got visibility. And then I'm going to wrap up with opportunities. That's what a lot of us really want, is opportunities so we can get business and grow our companies, right? And so I'll talk to you about how you can find Department of Energy opportunities so you can do business with them. Got a lot of good insight into there. So it's a lot of information packed into really 25 minutes, I guess. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business government contractor after I got out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you, repeatable, predictable results. I feel myself kind of pausing for a second because I literally didn't follow my process and say, hey, I'm the president of GovCon Chamber and I'm founder of Call Plan AI. But now you know, it's out of order, but I did it. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to the Government Contracting Success newsletter, my government contracting newsletter on LinkedIn is the largest out there. It's because I only provide information you would value. So go ahead and subscribe to that. If you're not following me on LinkedIn, make sure you do. I put out a ton of content, including something I just put out this morning where I was talking a lot about the spending, and you'll see me reference that a minute in the training. Last thing I want to say on this slide is that tomorrow's training, join me and I think like 150 plus people who are registered for tomorrow's training on how to do business with the Air Force. This is a great time for you to learn some of the tips that I'm going to share, but also a great time to network with other companies who are trying to sell into the Air Force. Okay, I got 23 minutes and a whole bunch of 8 hours worth of information. So let's get rocking and rolling, starting with the Department of Energy staff and program offices and their national laboratories. I just want to give you a big picture understanding of how they're organized, because when you understand how an entity like the Department of Energy is organized, you understand which offices to go knocking on their doors and which offices to ignore. Some offices just have nothing to do with what you sell. And so you don't want to even waste your time building relationships over there or learning anything. And this path, this strategy that you're going to put in place begins with you looking at the organization of Department of Energy and taking off the ones that don't matter to you. And then you are able to dive down. If you're looking at my slides, you can see that inside of Energy, there's at the high level, there's 19 staff offices. There's 9 infrastructure program offices, and then 7 science and innovation program offices. And I'll show you this in a second. And then inside of the nuclear security office, they've got 17 key offices that are in there. And I talked about national laboratories. There's 17 of those around the country. It's really important to understand that that's the high level organization. And it's one of your first exercises on doing business within energy. And it doesn't matter whether you're brand new or you've got $1 billion in revenue. You want to make sure you're zeroing in specifically to the offices I want to work at. It's not enough to say I'm going to sell to energy. Where in Department of Energy do you want to sell? When you know that, we're all able to help you. Okay, I'm going to go back and forth sharing my slides and sharing my screen. So let me go over here. I got to find the window. Okay, so I'm going to go through really quick and show you a lot of stuff on organization. But one of the first things I like doing is going in at a very high level, looking at the Department of Energy. One of the most interesting things about this organizational chart is nowhere on this chart does it say national laboratories. Yet that's like one of the biggest things they do. So these are really big key offices. And so I encourage you to go in there. You can take a screenshot, or you can just go into DOE and find it. But two things I wanted to mention when I'm looking at this. First off, the Office of Science, that ties into the laboratories. And so I'm able to understand where the laboratories are kind of coming in. They're not directly in here because they're GoCo, but they are in here, right? But over here, I circled on the right-hand side. I don't know if you can see it, but a blue circle, and it says Office of Minority Impact, Office of Minority Economic Impact. I just shared a post this morning about Department of Energy's budget, and this org chart is from June 2025, right? That office has been defunded. And I was able to look at it by looking at their budget. By looking at their budget, I was actually able to understand their organization. And so the reason I say this is to just understand how different documents go back and forth. Don't just look at an org chart. Tie the org chart back to the strategic plan and documents. Tie it back to the budget, and you really begin to get a much better understanding of the organization. When I look at an organization like Department of Energy and I'm trying to understand how are they shaped, I'm looking at their leadership in the office. So I come down, that's where the org chart was. And this is where I'm able to look at, oh, okay, here's the staff offices. I can start learning more about them. If I come down, I'm like, oh, it turns out they have a infrastructure set of program offices. And I'm like, does that fit me or is that out of me? Like I instinctively feel like maybe that's not my first place to go because I'm more IT or something, right? And I just keep coming down. I was talking to one of my customers this morning that by looking at the budget, I was able to see there's this new office coming up with $2 billion in new funding. That's what I meant by the money goes up and down. Excuse me, $200 million in new funding, and $200 million in new funding. But this is where the artificial intelligence is going to be let out of. And I'm like, well, that's where we want to play. All right, so I'm looking at the top level. Then I can come in here to a separate set of org charts where I'm looking at all the laboratories. And in here, this is different than what I just showed you. What I showed you was, let's call it Department of Energy proper. And in here are these laboratories. And if you really begin to understand energy, you begin to understand how these laboratories are doing different things out there, similar to like the Navy buying commands. They have different missions. So you can come down here, right? And you begin to click on them, understand them, cross out the ones where you go, you know what? I don't really have anything to do with Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. I'm more of an Oak Ridge guy. It's like, okay, there you go. You got your X's and your circles. Now you start digging down deeper. You can keep going into, I just went into a couple of laboratories where I go into Ames laboratory. And in there, they'll show an org chart. And so when I look at their org chart, I can come in and see things. Remember, I said they buy everything. So here's human resources and facilities, learning development, right? Not just all the main stuff you would think at a laboratory, but all the supporting services. Same thing with Oak Ridge. I'll just pull one more where these guys have a heavy focus, and I can come in and see the Oak Ridge org chart. This gives me a massive understanding of what's going on. Like it never occurred to me, and it's pretty silly because now that I said it never occurred to me, it just occurred to me. But up here it says counterintelligence at the top. I'm like, wow, I didn't know they did that. Well, no, I guess it kind of makes sense. Well, if I'm doing security at that level, now I know who to go talk to. And if you can't see this org chart is just loaded with people. There's got to be at least, I don't know, at least 50 people's names on here. And then I can go follow them up. So if I do HR services or IT services, I'm able to find a person, begin to pursue that. All of that starting from me just tracking on the org chart. Okay, by the way, I know this is a fire hose worth of information. It's designed to really help you understand how to do business. And the first step is to understand the organization. I'm not teaching you everything about the organization. That's what you'll go in and really dig into DOE or Department of Energy and do that. Okay, so there's that's the staff office. Let's talk about who can help us. Because, getting in there and really understanding it, it's kind of tough. There's 7 people I mentioned, or 7 roles of people who can help you get into the Department of Energy, to navigate energy, to learn about energy. The first one is small business prime contractors. These are small businesses that have won contracts at Department of Energy. These people still remember what it was like to be a small business themselves. And so you can reach out and talk to them. You can find their information generally through fpds.gov. Go to fpds.gov, find a contract you wish you won or aligns to what you sell. Find the person, the company that won it, and go to a place called dsbs.sba.gov, and you can find the owner of that company, and you're off to the races. That's number 1, small business prime contractors. Number 2 is one of my favorite is the small business professionals within the Department of Energy. Actually, let me see if that's my next screen that I was going to share. No. Here. So this is huge, right? Right in here, these guys have got 18 pages. Charlie Smith, I talked about, is the OSDBU. He believes in transparency, providing you information. And if you come in here, you'll find all these people's names and emails who are these small business specialists that I'm talking about. So these are small business program office folks. Let me come back to my slides really quick so I stay on track. All right, that was number 3, small business professionals within DOE. The next one is small business liaison officers at large primes. So I talk about those GOCOs, government-owned, contractor-operated facilities. Those for sure have primary supplier diversity folks, but there's also a group of people called small business liaison officers. And these are people who work at a large prime contractor who can help you navigate. If you're a fit for them and you can support energy with them, then they're going to talk to you. So you can find their information. You can go to my newsletter, by the way, and I have a directory of them right there on my newsletter. Number 4, procurement center representatives. These are people out of the SBA, and there's a whole bunch of them for the entire government. For Department of Energy, there's a couple of them who have responsibility or oversight on whether an opportunity within the Department of Energy goes small or large. And so these people, for the most part, have to sign off on things going large. Hey, this looks like it could go small, but it can go large, right? You want to find those people because they have the relationships within the Department of Energy with small business professionals. The number 2, right? With contracting officers, number 6. And so you want to reach out to the SBA PCRs. Apex Accelerator counselors. These people are awesome. They build relationships locally. If I'm going to New Mexico, I might try to reach out to one of those who are in New Mexico and say, hey, do you know somebody at the lab there in New Mexico? Number 6, contracting officers. So these ones are pretty obvious, I hope, for those of us trying to get in. But if we're trying to get in and learn about opportunities, or even just to get introduced farther in, you can go through contracting officers. You can find contracting officers the easiest way by going to FPDS, going in there and seeing what contracts similar to what you wish you had won were awarded within the Department of Energy. Up in the top right-hand corner, you'll find the name of the contracting officer. Sometimes it's cryptic, just work at it. But you can find the contracting officer and you can reach out. They do advanced planning briefs to industry. They do industry days and outreach sessions from the small business office. Those are other times where you can hear about contracting officers and use that path. And the last one is Department of Energy heads of procurement. And if I use that one and I come back here again, to this, right? If you go in here, here's an example of something that just on AIMS, for example, I could come in, and I haven't tried this out actually, but let's just try, this is live and I'm trying it. I don't know. Well, there you go. Senior contract manager, right? The reason I was using this is if you're trying to find people, I was doing a little test like this. If I do information, if I do information, right? I can come into AIMS and these laboratories have this, a couple of them are pretty whatever, but then there's Jennifer, the CIO. And if I'm doing IT work, I'm definitely going to follow her content or whatever she's saying so I can learn. I might even decide to reach out and try to engage. And right there's phone number and emails. Same thing on the, I'll come back to that. I'm getting a little ahead of myself there. But you can go into energy and find these people. These are people who can help you navigate. All right, let's go to where do you want to be so buyers can find you? In sales, there's something called inbound sales and outbound sales. Outbound sales is when I knock on a door of a buyer and I'm introducing myself and I'm doing all the effort to make that relationship happen. That's outbound sales. Inbound sales is when the buyers are knocking on your door. Somebody comes knocking on your door and saying, hey, we're looking for risk management framework or cybersecurity work or lawn care. It doesn't matter. If they're knocking on your door, it's inbound. And a great example of how inbound happens is if you put an advertisement out and people respond to it, that's inbound, right? But if you go knocking on the door, that's outbound. You can only do less than 1% of all the activity with outbound. And that means 99% plus of the potential sales that you can have are inbound. And most of us government contractors do 0 inbound. And I really want to encourage you to do inbound sales by being where the buyers are looking. The first place all federal buyers look, including Department of Energy buyers, is DSBS, the Dynamic Small Business Search Tool. It's now moved to an upgraded tool called the SBA Small Business Search. You can go to either one. It's just so much easier for me to say dsbs.sba.gov. It'll redirect you there. But inside of there is where, in the FAR, it's the only market research tool that is actually mentioned, which will be interesting to see what happens, whether they rename it. But anyways, that is where all of us small businesses are, 300,000 plus. Here's the thing I want you to pay attention to. I used an example, but you can imagine with your own business. In DSBS, in SAM, the number of service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses selling to the federal government is almost 30,000, 29,833,000 businesses that are selling. 27,965 of you don't have a capability statement in there. That means if a buyer is coming along and they look at your profile because it comes up, but you don't have a capability statement, they're going to go, well, I'm going to move on. I'm going to find somebody who has a capability statement. And you can imagine that if there's 10 that come up or 100 that come up, whatever it is, and some have a capability statement there, so I just click on it, and some don't, I'm going to ignore the ones that don't, even if they're the best in the whole world, and I'm going to go to these guys. They've made my job easier because there's the capability statement. But that's assuming they found you. If you look at the same 29,833 small businesses that are SDVOs, 25,765 have zero. That's what I meant to do. Zero keywords. Like they don't say anything. They don't say cybersecurity. They don't say lawn care or toilet cleaning or road building, whatever it is. They don't have any keywords. How can a buyer find you if you don't give them a way to find you? And you don't have to go through rocket science. Just go to Google and say, how would you define my business? Grab that, dump it into DSBS, and you're way better off than having nothing, right? And so get visible where buyers are. The second place, and let me go over and show you some more, is inside of DOE. A lot of these labs have their own supplier portals. So here, this one is Ames. They've got a vendor portal in here. Pretty straightforward and simple, but if you're interested in supporting these guys, you just come in and fill it out. Some basic information. Again, you can drop your capability statement, and now you're on their radar, right? This is a really important thing to remember. Similar to Ames is Oak Ridge. They've got a similar type way. Hey, if you want to reach out to us and have us engage you, this is how you do it. Figure out where the buyers are, because when you fill this out for a small business office, when you fill out the information saying, hey, I'm interested in working with you or connecting with you, that goes into a repository they have. So if they're looking for businesses, they won't go to DSBS first. They'll go to their internal tool and then they'll go somewhere else. So if you want to be found by the federal buyers, if you want them to reach out to you and do some of that inbound sales where they invite you to meetings, be visible in the chat. Let me know you're tracking on what I'm sharing. Thirsty business. Okay, I want to thank today's sponsors. I really appreciate our sponsors, beginning with Graham. They do staffing and American Sign Language services. Steel Toed does cybersecurity, especially CMMC. If you're looking to support DoD, you know that CMMC is a requirement, so check them out. Restream. This is how this is a company I use to put out all of my content. Like you're engaging right now, I can do it in one place, and it restreams out to many other places. So it's really good. Going back to being where your buyers are or inbound sales, this is an excellent activity if you're comfortable promoting your expertise, et cetera. And then Call Plan AI. That's my company that I started just 4 weeks ago, but it's designed for people who are looking to build those relationships within the federal market with federal buyers and teammates to have meetings that lead to opportunities and lead to proposals and sales. If that's something you're interested in, check out www.callplanai. All right, let's wrap up the training with how do you find opportunities for Department of Energy? And there's a lot of places. I'm really excited to talk about it. And so first I'm going to talk to the slide, and then I'll go show you just watching my time. DOE has forecasts in there. They have a headquarter level type forecast, and then they have like almost 50 long-range acquisition forecasts. So LRAF, long-range acquisition forecast. They have almost 50 of those for all the, remember I said all those different offices and laboratories, et cetera. They have them out there, and that's awesome. And the really cool thing is they're maintained by, if you recall, those GOCO, government-owned, contractor-operated, by those contractors. The second place you can find opportunities, it's a standard place for every agency, right, is SAM. Be tracking SAM and DOE for sources sought and RFIs. When you track those, you're tracking opportunities that are on their way or you can look at RFQs or RFPs, quotes or proposals. When you're looking at those, you're looking for things they're buying today. And then you can look at awards, which is another one of my favorite things because I can see what they have bought before. I can look pretty far back and see what they have bought and see some of the details. SAM.gov is a great place. And then the third place you want to find opportunities is go figure out, and when you talk to those 7 people I mentioned, one of your questions should always be, what are your top contract vehicles? That question should always be asked. You can look at FPDS and learn, but always ask it. Just confirm with this person, what are the top contract vehicles you use? When you know that, you can track those vehicles. Even if you're not a prime contract holder, you can learn about opportunities for DOE right there on that contract vehicle. And the fourth one is FPDS. This is a place where you can find just unlimited amount of opportunities that are already awarded and they're going to be expiring. And so when I look at FY 2026, I'm looking at the contracts that are expiring at DOE in FY 2026, and I bring it back on, man, I wish I won that one. I bring it back, put it in my pipeline, and I start chasing it, right? So you can find a ton of opportunities in FPDS, and these are what we call expiring contracts. They've already been awarded, and chances are they're going to be recompeted, meaning awarded again. And so you want to be part of that. My favorite place to find opportunities is in strategic relationships. You want to build relationships, get in the door with people, and you'll start hearing about opportunities. Okay, so let me just show you the forecast really quick. This is the Department of Energy's main forecast page. And maybe somebody can drop that link in, but also keep in mind, you should just go to energy.gov and start researching. Get good at research. It is a skill. You don't want to pay me to do that. You want to learn that skill because you will beat out your competition who does not do the research. So try to come to energy.gov and just walk around and spend weeks getting good at this, not an hour or 2, weeks getting really good at this. All right. If you come down, you'll see this is what I meant by headquarters and federal field offices. These are opportunities. Here's one dedicated to construction. All sorts of construction happens within DOE. But then as you start coming down, remember I said there was almost 50. Here's all these different labs and different offices that have their own forecast. You can come in here and learn about opportunities just by going to Department of Energy's acquisition forecast. That is a great stepping off point. None of these things are like a done deal. They're all about how do I find opportunities. Winning those is a whole separate training, right? Okay, so let me nail this last slide here. Here's what I want you to remember as we're wrapping up today's training. First off, DOE is definitely spending, right? They have a budget of over $46 billion for the next fiscal year, 2026. I would be looking at that and absolutely figuring out what's the piece I want, right? Do I want $1 million? Do I want $10 million? Whatever my goal is. I have a friend, his budget just for one department like energy is $2 billion. That's his sale goal, right? And so set your goal based on the budget that's in there, but guaranteed DOE has the money they're going to spend. If you've got the services and products that support their mission, then they need what you sell. They absolutely need what you sell. And so you need to get in there and talk to them. They want to hear from you today. Be where they're looking and then go knocking on the doors and start developing those relationships. If you do that, you're going to start having a lot more success and you'll see you'll be able to do more business with Department of Energy. Don't forget to sign up tomorrow for the Air Force, how to do business with the Air Force. And then just keep in mind, if you're looking to strengthen your strategic relationships, if you struggle with getting in the door, having those good first meetings that are successful and lead to second meetings and third meetings, if you want to build those strategic relationships, I'd love to have you join me at callplan.ai. Just go to www.callplan.ai. Check it out. Right now, it's the earliest stage. I'm in my 4th week of soft launching it, meaning I just launched it to softly out there. I haven't even put it on LinkedIn yet. But because I'm still building it, right? It works right now, but I'm still building it. I'm learning what really do I need to put in there to nail it as a success for you. Because I'm still doing that, I'm offering 90% off for life. Love to have you in there as an early subscriber. And I'd love to be able to help you have really good meetings. So go check it out. All right. If you found success in today's training, if you found one little nugget that was helpful to you, just put in DOE rocks into the chat. Let me know on your way out. And all of us, just remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.